Coming to paperback and e-readers from SJS Direct, Isis, House of Isis, the goddess next door takes on a hustling Hotep high priestess in Harlem in this Afrocentric Isis series adventure. Pre-order Isis, House of Isis on Amazon.com today. Recently, I heard about Mr. Superboy 223's channel being terminated due to an alleged violation of YouTube's policies. However, as I began to take a more panoramic look at what was going on with YouTube and what they were doing to many YouTube channels, I began to understand what this purge was all about. Because not only were black YouTubers like Mr. Superboy 223 being targeted for termination, but also men in the MGTOW community have had their channels targeted for termination. Conservatives have had their channels targeted for termination, and even Republican politicians have had their YouTube channels targeted for termination. And I look at the way YouTube has been targeting people for termination and then doing passive-aggressive tactics like the demonetization of all those videos last year, and then what they did, saying that they weren't going to make channels partners if they didn't get a certain amount of views. And it's clear that YouTube is making efforts to try to purge anyone who does not fit their narrative. Now, I've seen the damage that the YouTube purge has done to the goth subculture here on YouTube, and I've watched, due to the monetization where they just kicked off a lot of goth channels off of the partner program, how the goth community has suffered as a result, because goths used to post videos almost every week, but once they started the demonetization, we started to see a decline in them. And then once they made the policy saying that they could only get monetized, be a partner with a certain amount of hours and a certain amount of views, goth YouTube literally disappeared off the face of the platform. And what I'm seeing right now is a continuing advancement in trying to purge people off of the YouTube platform. And this latest onslaught of YouTubers is what they're doing next in trying to target other YouTubers for termination due to their arbitrary rules. Now, YouTube says that this is due to an error in their algorithm and due to the poor training of their so-called dedicated flaggers. Now, YouTube has hired dedicated flaggers to so-called keep content off the site that can be considered hate speech or considered harmful. However, I look at who they hired to be the so-called dedicated flaggers, and one of the groups, the Southern Poverty Law Center, is a known far-left group. And they've also hired many SJWs and other far-left people to police the website. And when I look at who they're hiring to police the website, it clearly shows that there is some real bias towards the far left as related to what the narrative that they're trying to push regarding YouTube and YouTube content. But what most people at Google don't understand is that when you have these dedicated flaggers who are far left ideologues, what they're going to do is they're going to try to purge off any content that does not fit their narrative. And that content that they're pushing off, what they're doing is pushing off any content that reflects a differing opinion that does not fit the view of many liberals out here. And when you do that, what you're doing is showing that you are violating people's freedom of speech and freedom of expression. Moreover, you are compromising the original mission of YouTube, because the original mission of YouTube was called Broadcast Yourself. And on a platform that was designed for people to broadcast themselves, people were supposed to have the right to broadcast whatever views they wanted. And that was all part of our First Amendment, because under the First Amendment, people are guaranteed the right to freedom of speech and freedom of expression in the United States of America. Unfortunately, what we have here in America are a lot of people who do not understand what the First Amendment is and what the First Amendment is about. The First Amendment was designed to protect the speech of people we don't like, so that people we do like can have the right to say whatever they want, and we can have an intelligent discourse regarding whatever issues are out here. And what they're doing on YouTube is preventing freedom of speech and freedom of expression by removing channels that are conservative or present black male issues, or even in a passive aggressive way, pushing off people who are of alternative lifestyles like the goth subculture. What they're doing is trying to push these groups off the platform and then leaving the platform open only for those who they feel they agree with, who are on the far left and left leaning. And that doesn't lead to a functioning and healthy platform that says broadcast yourself. What that does is it creates a platform that only pushes one narrative and one viewpoint. And that's a very dangerous thing to have on an online platform, because if you have an online platform like that, you're not going to really get much traffic. Because I've seen over the last couple of years websites go out and do this and then watch their traffic literally die off because people feel like they cannot have a place to freely express themselves. I saw this happen on many comic book message boards, and once they went that way, the whole site died. And this is where YouTube is not looking at the big picture as related to the platform. When you look at the platform was founded on broadcast yourself, and it was also founded on creating a platform for creative people to be able to express themselves. With the tactics being used right now, the passive aggressive ones with the demonetization of videos and the demonetization of channels and taking them out of the partner program and the termination of channels, they are literally destroying the platform for content providers, because content providers will have no incentive to continue creating content for a platform where there is no way for them to have freedom of speech and freedom of expression. And YouTube's executives and her CEO is not looking at the big picture as related to YouTube, because what they're doing right now is what the MySpace managers did when News Corp bought them back in 2009 and 2010. They are creating a platform that enables dysfunction, where trolls, spammers, and attention whores take over the platform, and intelligent discourses for content are pushed off the platform. And I look at YouTube CEO and what she said regarding Logan Paul as a reinforcement of that kind of policy. Instead of trying to terminate Logan Paul for a clear violation of YouTube policy when he went in that forest and mocked that man who had committed suicide, she only temporarily suspended his monetization. And that really is a contradiction when you think about it. People like Mr. Superboy, who only express their opinion, they get their channel terminated. People who are conservative, they get their channel terminated. But your Logan Paul gets a complete pass for something that most people found to be completely and utterly disgusting and a clear violation of YouTube policy. And it shows us, when it comes down to YouTube policy, how arbitrary things are related to YouTube. If you present a difference of opinion, people want to take you off the channel, but you have this male, this Logan Paul, who participates in one of the most reprehensible and disgusting acts, and he's still allowed to remain on the platform. And because this guy is allowed to remain on the platform, many YouTubers are completely disgusted and really want to get this CEO terminated because of her irresponsible, reckless, and egregious behavior in giving Logan Paul a pass and stepping on people's freedom of speech and freedom of expression. Logan Paul is allowed to freely express himself on the platform, but people who present differing opinions are not allowed to express themselves on the platform. That's clearly a form of hypocrisy, and it's a real violation of people's First Amendment rights on YouTube. And this is why I urge many of those who have had their channels purged off of YouTube and terminated, like many of the MGTOW channels, many of the black men's channels, many of the alternative channels which have suffered due to the demonetization to come together and file a class action lawsuit against Google and YouTube for violating their First Amendment rights. Because people in the past have made threats to do this, and after hearing these threats, many times YouTube has really backed off. But what I believe people need to do is come together and really come against this YouTube for violating their First Amendment rights. Because I look at the big picture regarding this conservative purge, and I really believe this is really all about trying to get differing opinions off the platform to deal with the 2018 midterm elections and the 2020 presidential election, because many people believe that YouTube had a impact on the 2016 election and the election of Donald Trump. But what most people don't understand is that 60% of white women voted for Donald Trump, and I don't think YouTube had anything to do with it. And this is what many of these far left people believe, and that's why they want to purge off all of these conservative people off of YouTube and then passively aggressively say it was a mistake, but it was really all about trying to get those voices off so that they would not be able to galvanize support for someone like Donald Trump and lead to a complete difference of direction for this next series of elections, such as the 2018 midterm elections, which the Democrats are trying to win, and the 2020 presidential election, which they're desperately trying to win. And so instead of trying to build up candidates on the platform, they want to try to censor other people's voices so they won't have a voice on the platform, showing us who the real fascists are. I mean, I look at these YouTube policies, and this is what I see the big picture of them being all about, that they're all about purging voices off the platform that talk about liberals and talk about the left and left-leaning views. They want to try to get those off the platform so that they can control the platform, not understanding that the long-term picture that they're doing is doing real serious damage to the YouTube platform. Because in order for those advertisers to come here, you need to have a platform with open content. And if people cannot feel that they're going to be able to build a channel here, they're going to leave and migrate to one of the competing sites like BitChute or Minds.com, where they can have their free speech and freedom of expression. When it comes down to YouTube overall, I look at the big picture for YouTube and I see a website that's getting ready to shoot itself in the foot and eventually lead to its own demise, in the same way that MySpace led to its own demise, because YouTube is showing everyone that they support trolls, spammers, and junk content, and that's the same type of content that led to the complete collapse of MySpace. MySpace was a place for friends, it was a place for artists, it was a place for writers and creative people. However, over time, once News Corp bought it, it turned into a place for trolls, spammers, attention whores, and they overtook the website, posting so much junk content that regular people just decided to stop going there. And that's what I see happening to YouTube in a year or a couple of years if they keep doing things to alienate people and run them off the site, because they're thinking they can turn YouTube into the next Netflix, but you can't turn YouTube into Netflix, because YouTube made its audience by allowing people to broadcast themselves, while Netflix was a website that was all about creating entertainment content. Now, YouTube wants to be an entertainment website and entertain idiots like Logan Paul, but what they're doing is alienating people and leaving them to leave the website and then pushing off the content providers who provided the content that drove the foot traffic there and drove the advertisers there. So they're not really looking at the big picture as related to building a strong YouTube, and the CEO really doesn't have a vision for building a strong YouTube channel. This is why she needs to go, and there really needs to be someone there with a plan towards setting a direction for YouTube where it can continue to be the site that allows people to broadcast themselves, build a channel here, and build a channel where they can freely express themselves and have protections from trolls, spammers, attention whores, and people who are members of what I call the Zero Subscribers Club. People who go and have no subscribers and no content on their channel, but go to other people's channels to go out here and harass them. Nobody is making efforts to protect the content providers on YouTube, and that's something that really needs to be addressed by senior management, because when I look at this YouTube purge is going to hurt YouTube long term, because if you have no content on your website, then you're not going to get the foot traffic on your website. And the people who you think are going to police the website, who's going to pay them if there is no content on the website? So they're not really thinking about the big picture as related to keeping this website up and keeping it profitable. Because if you drive off all the content providers that people like, all they're going to leave is the handful that people don't like and the junk content no one really cares about, because over time you can only get so many views on a twerk video when you've seen it 20 times, or a view, or a bunch of far left people spouting their ideology over and over again. Eventually that content gets repetitive, it gets boring, just like the content on MySpace got repetitive and boring, and people just got tired of seeing it and decided to leave that website and migrate over to the next one. I see the same pattern happening at YouTube, because no one's really thinking about the big picture. They're just focusing on the small picture and their little part in it, and not thinking about the overall mission of YouTube and how it relates to Google's long-term business. I see in the long term a large group of YouTubers who are affected filing a class action lawsuit regarding their First Amendment rights being violated, and I see that lawsuit really doing damage to Google's image and the overall social media platform. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct titles, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.